Welcome everyone to an evening of poetry. Is Shawn Smith, and I was out scouting poets one night, and he was gracious enough he was with his typewriter, pounding out poems, and he agreed to be our feature for this month, for this evening. So, and you're from Carmel? Or?
I live in Beacon.
You live in Beacon, okay,
Yeah.
Great. Great place to live.
Yeah.
So if you all help me in giving Shawn a nice warm Poughkeepsie welcome.
Thank you guys. If it wasn't for all the traffic, I would have worn regular pants. I work in scrubs, so I just took off my scrub top, so
You look
probably
great.
looked a little
You're
fancier.
So what do you do during the day?
I'm a surgical technician for ophthalmology.
Nice.
So I noticed that some of you guys had some politically driven poems. So I'm gonna read one first that is actually a eulogy for a bunch of my friends who died either in or following the war in Afghanistan. How far is safe? What distance did you place between the flower beds and the bomb pits? The garage parties and the howling warning sirens. How far is it from 2nd Street to the stone cross on the hillside, the American flag that waves through the days that we are left at half-mast without you? How far is safe? Can you hear us when we speak, our voices of languid rivers? We flow and ebb. We miss you. I hope you can hear us. You gave it all for 50 stars and returned home to darkness. We are all right here. I hope that you can hear us. We miss you. Yeah, it was all like within like 1 year. It was crazy. So I write a lot of semi-dark, kind of like surrealist poetry. I've been writing it for a long time, but I just recently started doing it again a couple years ago, and I published a book not too long ago. So this next poem is called Her Ghost. You will think about her at times, when the moon glows to greet you, when the stars scrawl scriptures in the sky. In your most desperate moments, you will gather strewn sand and grasp at hourglasses suspended in time. The funeral bouquets will remind you of white paint chipped away to oak, ghost rings of forgotten glasses. You will paint pictures of her forever, inaccuracy accentuated in every stroke, faceless marionettes that mildly resemble. I can read some happier ones. So this next one is called Surrender. I will surrender to the sun in my warmest moments, when the forest dew hangs as so many willows floating, collecting in leaf folds, spilling slowly from trumpet flowers. Dragonflies gather, in oil spill color, collecting the water's surface. In systemic feeding, the water ripples, tiny, delicate circles, expanding to stillness as resolute as a frozen lake. Sunfish peck at the impact, searching. I will surrender to the sun in my darkest nights, huddled, lamplight wavering in unseen winds, rhythmically enfolding, hands for heat, the creeping chill of prickling needles, dreams of daylight hidden in quiver. Opossums congregate, a buffet cadaver, the circle of life keeps spinning, tilting through the seasons on crooked spindles. Orange day glow slow burns the horizon. Relief from the cold dark, a holy communion. Let's see. This next one is called Empire of Salt. I moved back to New York about 8 months ago from Eugene, Oregon. And I was there for a long time, and I lived in the city, and it has a lot of issues with kind of like poverty and drugs and all kinds of stuff. So this was just sort of a poem that I wrote like looking out my city window. It's called Empire of Salt. Even the frost-cool morning cannot produce such candor. Not even the on-way ramp beggar whose worn, uneven, heeled boots sag pitifully. An affliction, a terrible affliction, bitterly conceived, reluctantly acquisitioned, darkening and placidly fumigated in pestilence, by breath, spreading beneath door cracks, slinking under tables. What have I become that these tourniqueted ventricles could pump in rhythm, in corrugated steel eyes that peer into the sunrise? A lot of my stuff is pretty dark, so I apologize, guys.
At least you got a lot of sun in it. The morning sun, the communion, you know, you got the sun still shining.
This is a poem about growth called Migration. Colorful leaves fall in northern winter, a great migration of life woven delicately into the fabric of death. Monarch wings drift to earth in Mexico, webbing nets of mycelium blanketing the underworld. Like leaves, humans also fall. From grace, from favor, from love. Like the monarch, we migrate in predictable patterns, towards resentment, towards isolation. Unlike migratory speeches, we do not always come back. We mimic nature imperfectly. We suppress the phoenix, denying ourselves a triumphant return. It's okay to run away. It's okay to come home. Sometimes facing our pain renewed is the most healing migration.
That was great. That was so beautiful and true.
Is that true about the monarchs? Sometimes they don't come home.
Monarchs actually will fly to Mexico to die.
I mean, that's
they'll pupate over there in the trees, and it'll just there's this one place in Mexico, I don't know the name of it, but it'll just like rain monarch leaves for like months while they all just go up in the trees, and then they die, and then they're born. The next generation of them is born, and they travel from that spot in Mexico.
So the phoenix did come back.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was kind of why the monarchs were a theme there.
That's awesome.
This poem is called Cold Dark. The moon hangs on gathered twine, tied off to a distant star. Collected, the recession of waves and gravitational pull, softly she glows with the memory of life. The nights have never been as cold dark. Every morning the sun gathers her in warm embrace, but it's never enough. She lies in hung death, forever frozen. Day after day the sun tries to breathe life into her hollow core. It's been that way since time began, since this revolving stone sparked life. Still, hopelessly bereaved, the sun reaches. With eyes of cosmic storm, he carries her celestial body until the world ends. And still then he will hold her, as she pulls the depths no more. As the waters solidify in the freeze of space, he will mourn her distant mantle forever, until the world expands into pockets of vacuum, until black holes absorb matter into a cool void. These polar hearts will break in unison. It's sort of the tug and push of the moon pulling the ocean to the shore versus sort of the sun kind of recessing it. It's like a tug of war celestially in order for our planet to survive, basically. I thought it was a little interesting. Okay. So I actually wrote this one because I really love Sylvia Plath. So I tried to write one in her style, like without actually stealing anything. It's called Spectres. Rock and shore, expanse slope tomes of bound leather couldn't. Slam shut, straighten the child's spine. The tiring specters, ghost light, street wraiths, exhausted by much closet to bed haunting and tiny sleeping eyes that saw it coming. For what, then, had they gazed, drips and spigots of ancient oils, these fleeting forms, if they listen, covers drawn on linen sheets, fingers that tremble as shrine lights in murky algae forests? The ghouls were there, nothing more. Still they drifted in smoke and elegance, brushing no lingered candle, lace curtain, but a certain yellowed mood. They analyzed them, those children, animal grip legs of seesaws watching, crows perching in the faintest of shadows. This was my favorite poem that I wrote since I moved back to New York. It is called Beneath It All. It's kind of a love poem, which is a little outside of my realm of expertise if you haven't noticed. We left so many things unsaid, but still, we find these words had lain dormant just below the surface. Tied we remain, and though the rope has frayed, the love lies right beneath the cool water. Thousands of miles apart we rested our heads, tethered still. Whole lives gilded, guided waves to our shores, our buoy gently lulling in the current. All the while the braids remained unchanged, strengthened by the sea. Lost ticked away in passing moments, days, years. A rhythmic absence felt only in gentle tug, in waves crashing to sand. Moments gather in deep recesses, memories, steeped with age, ironed out curves which were once sharp edges, now round with experience. I lived without you, for so long, telling myself that this gentle ache was only the slow pang of growth, the price of expansion. The slow recession of the sea brought this lost doorway afloat, keyhole caked in barnacles, wood cracked in stagnating salt expansion. I reached for the knob, the door lying marooned on the sand, hinges rusted, the fragrance of slow encroaching mold. The frame rattled in aged exertion, boards cracking, shrapnel pulling out to meet the rising tide. With a resounding creak, the door gave way, the oaken frame crumbling with effort. It fell to pieces on the beach. Cast aside, you stood there, smiling. Uncorked storms rose and swelled, the vibrancy of the life you had built without me on full display. A gallery of small, delicately spun ceramic pots. The braid that once anchored our memories tightened, pulling in a shared exhale, followed by a timid, nervous, insufflating relief. The lives that fell away stronger. These old, forgotten knots, I can feel them tighten still. Never again will the waves pull this vessel to the depths. Closer now in the gathering hum. Silent gales, two hearts slow dancing in rhythmic beat. I never want to close this door again. I want to remain afloat, adrift, together. Thank you. So I am going to read a couple of really weird ones that I just personally really like, and I've actually never read this one aloud. So you guys are going to be the first people I ever read it to aloud. This is called The Others, and I still have no idea what it means. As we constructed our world, so too did the others. So the builders did embark, so too did the others. With frigid gape, cord frame, they lay land, lay stone, lay wood. Land of wheat for which they feast, the others feast. Stone of land for which they stack, the others stack. Wood of lumber for which they build, the others build, so too. Tall silhouettes around fire warming, so too. They reap wheat, neat stacks, as do. No gloves, hands of splinter stains and grasses, so too. They walk, feet of lumbering hunch, as do eyes become billow, unseeing parallels crossing, of reflection and weary, so too, they, with the others too. Illusions form partitions which create simple lies of us, the others too. Dream-born harvests they reap, so do, from the scrunched brow of the stillness dark, as too they do. As out of gravel form the spires, so too. Of they and the others who did observe, as do, and the others were, and they were still. Distance this other, and she dreams not of frigid gape cord frame. She tires of building with the wood, laying land, reaping wheat, of bird and beasts, rock haulers, and wooden wheels turning. To a hillside of stone spires, tied wheat, wood shelter, she do. She bears teeth, and the others too. Distant these builders, nothing like the others. They too are nothing, and she too is nothing. They gather in celebration, the others who do too, and she who is nothing. No matter how many times I read it, I don't know what I was talking about.
That was ironically my favorite poem of his.
But it's so poetic.
Yeah,
I mean,
It is.
It puts good imagery in your head.
it's very
It is,
good
yeah.
imagery and the language and.
So this is one that Rachel is probably tired of hearing. It's called The River. I actually read this on a Scottish television show during the pandemic. I had gotten a little bit of a following on Instagram for my poetry, and I ended up somehow being involved in this strange, broadcast poetry event in Scotland, and that was pretty terrifying. So this is called The River. This town has never been so cold as the night they dragged the river. Townsfolk gather in hushed whispers, fearful eyes filled with judgment, red, white, and blue reflections, placid water. This town has always been a home. It was written in the trees before they were timbered, in the ceramic crosses hanging above doorways, in the distant song of the hymnal congregation. This town has never been so cold as the night they dragged the river. The flatbed yawns as the hitch pulls taut, bumper first dragging weeds until the wheels find purchase. The crucifix falls from the mantle. The family photo shatters. Mother, daughter, and son, a lifetime of memories. This town will never be so cold as the night they dragged the river. Accidents don't happen in this sleepy village. Suffering is reserved for distant places, unknown cities, second cousins. Water slips off the roof of the truck, a candle's pit overflowing with wax, silently draining from the cracks in the doors. Receipts and old water bottles bob in the lulling crypt, a 2-ton container filled brim draining its contents. The air is a solemn, sorrowful silence, onlookers grasping at wishes. This town will never be so cold as the night they dragged the river. 2 kids and a prom night promise, a hairpin turn and a bottle of whiskey. Brake lights shudder in the darkness, twin black rubber banners burning into the pavement. A corkscrew metalled guardrail churned towards the moon. 2 weightless bodies festooned. This town will never be so cold as the night they dragged the river. Gasps and grief of a town bereaved, this home is now soiled and empty. Things like this don't happen here. They happen everywhere. This town will never forget, in the reunions, the picnics, the phone calls to old friends. Innocents died the night they dragged the river. This town will never be warm again. I had several people I grew up with died in car accidents in my school. I think it was an absurd amount in my graduating class died on either prom night or the week before prom. And I kind of just always remembered that. We used to say we were cursed because every year somebody would die, but it seemed like everybody just kind of sped through life a little too fast, which we all find ourselves doing.
Where's your hometown?
Walden, New York. I went to Valley Central.
It's across the river, right?
Yeah. Let's read something less depressing. How much time do I have?
About 5 hours.
5 hours,
Oh.
okay. I don't know if I have 5 hours, but
Yeah, about 15 minutes, or
Okay.
give or take.
Let's see if I can find one real quick that is a little bit happier for a moment.
I don't mind dark.
Yeah,
Oh, I know. Don't
like
worry.
that.
There's more dark, but we'll try to break it up. Okay, we'll go with we did a love poem, so we'll do a breakup poem. Breaking up is easy. Coming home to a partner-shaped impression on the sofa, soda rings on the coffee table, ectoplasm left behind by her ghost. We choke on the pleasantries, the lingering taste of the fast food you had for dinner, eating alone in the car, gathering the courage to go home. The television acts as a metronome, ticking away the silence, the moments before you go to bed on opposite sides of the continent that has become your blankets. Glaciers part divides and terraform the earth between our bodies. Morning coffee and brief parting words, the paper, the small talk of two strangers, morning news, the weather. Each embrace is more distance, an arm-length formality. Each fuck is a transaction, terms and agreements, forms signed in triplicate, signed by a notary and stashed in the bedside table next to the earplugs. Arguments are an excuse to imitate empathy, words that spill like the milk in our morning cereal, the time-honored tradition of feigned, exasperated conjecture. The rational fear of existence, the very fabric of your being is a testament to the violence that is your presence. Not even the drowning lull of repetition can bring calm, counting down the seconds and minutes before your next shift, the rotting drudgery of social competence that has become a kind of ironic salvation. Breaking up is easy when you hate who you've become, and it would just be easier to be alone. Ooh, I actually forgot about this one. So this is kind of based on the duality of kind of having a good side of yourself and then a side that is, filled with trauma and all the other things that everybody's filled with, whether they like to admit it or not. I am the lonely lighthouse, selflessly piercing the darkness, revolving, guiding ships home through threatening waters. I am the autumn rain, clouds that fill to capacity, bursting in delicate showers of pent-up affection. I am the tireless builder, creating worlds in secret, drawing up blueprints, making them reality. I am the courageous fighter, plucking teeth from canvas to raise fists again in defiance. I am the indelible drifter. I am the immovable weight, the rock on the hillside, little initials carved through time, unwaveringly unapologetic. I am the tossed sea, glimmering reflections of dance, a window to an unimaginable world, lying unseen just below the surface. I am the curious observer, scrawling illegible notes on lined paper, gathering lessons from friendly gesture, absorbing the world in resplendent color. I am Frankenstein's monster, constructed of washi tape and trauma, little ripped up love letters glued to affectionately crafted ransom notes. I am the creature that stalks the swamp, pulling puppet strings like vines, cords that speak threats of drowning. I am a dilapidated construct of emotion. I am the ghost in your bedroom, rattling chains and slamming doors. An illusion of memory that haunts past, no longer able to communicate. I am a living house of cards, cardboard stock as weak as teak bridges, the flexing tension of years of hustle set to collapse from pressure at any moment. I am the tragic conclusion, the climactic genocide of friendship, a walking testament to depravity, gatherer of skulls in dark corners. I am the mumbling witness, growing weaker and weaker by the day, weary of telling the same routine tales to tone-deaf strangers in the park.
It's great.
That was good. I'm Frankenstein's monster, everybody.
Thanks. Let's see.
What was the name of that poem?
Light versus dark. Very aptly named. This one is one of my personal favorites. It's called That Bitter Taste. When we hold hands, I feel bones break. Our embraces are rhythmic asphyxiation. The stories we sculpted remain as melted clay. Love is the smoke of our snuffed candles, the scent of expelled phosphorus, a vortex devoid of oxygen. I can't forget that bitter taste, the metallic twinge of nickel, the ridges of a lip chewed raw, images flash burn behind my eyes. The arc welds that hold us together bend, a bridge collapsing, swallowing cars, bystanders tumbling into the royal. You took my breath away, and now I wish it stayed that way. Another beautiful poem to give your partner.
Did she try to poison you?
I don't know. Not yet. Unless it's like real subtle.
You're not expecting that.
Not yet.
No.
I've been pretty good so far. If I keep reading all these sad ass poems though.
I don't want to see you on date one.
Let's see. I'm just trying to find a good one.
They're all good ones.
Oh, shush. So this is a poem that I wrote in another style of a poet that I like, who I actually hate as a person, which is Charles Bukowski. I think that he is a byproduct of a time that is better left forgotten, but he did have some very interesting and profound pieces of poetry. This is called Truth and Folly. I tried it, giving in, again. Sometimes it doesn't stick. This time, it seemed to. She says, you just have to never give up. It gets better. It's all the same. Until she wraps her arms around my neck, hot breath on my earlobe. I'm gonna fix you. Her left leg kicked back. A wife embracing her sailor. She was an excellent salesman. Dress hanging just right. Hope seeping through living words, falling like fine lingerie to the carpet. It was when I gave in. Familiar pain resumed, wrenching open brittle ribs. I had things to do, papers to write, coffee to drink, cigarettes to chain, lives to fuck up. I think you'd better go. Her leg returns to earth, shoulders hunched in defeat. I love you, she says, her eyes of swelling wave. I'm so tired of being saved, the dam that catches the water. The cigarette smoke curls in the study. The ashtray overflows. The keys clack in contemplation. The memory of her hair falling in ringlets. Artists are better at falling. We are too manic, too broken. Our pain translates to paper better than our love ever has. I feel like that was a very common sort of theme in that like style of poetry back in the day, was that we're like undeserving as an artist. You know, you can't just like find another manic person who's good for you. You know, you just have to destroy everything, which I don't wholly agree with. So I wrote this about the pandemic, which I'm sure everybody's tired of hearing about, and I am too, but here it is. There's a graffiti mural painted on the 5th Street Market. It portrays a heart being tightened, a knotwork of thin ropes, splayed snakes, and stylized animation. It's a thought-provoking piece, especially in the modern climate. The last 2 years have caused so much heart-sick bedlam. So many nights alone, lit by soft white streetlights in the distance. Even the pigeons remember, fresh bread tossed under the bridge. Now they pick at crumbs caked a powder blue mask littered on the sidewalk. Even the concrete misses the sounds of stumbles home drunk on opulence. It breaks apart in needle-thin cracks in the frigid chill of this lonely winter. Just as our hearts, they have hardened, having forgotten the warm embrace of community. We traded our handshakes for text messages, work lives for rectangular boxes of light that speak in circular, static-blown speakers. Our hearts, they beat in the memory of footsteps. So I work in surgery, and when I was in Oregon, I had moved out there with a partner, and then we broke up, and then it was a pandemic. So it was just me and my cat and a surgery center every day, in and out, 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 for like a year until I couldn't take it anymore. So that was the byproduct of that, and that's where a lot of these real dark poems came from, which is a pretty good place to pull them from. This is a poem that I don't really know why I wrote it, but I like it, and it almost didn't make it into this book. It's called Mantis. You mouth-siphoned gasoline from my rusted old truck. We spun black chalk lines in abandoned parking lots and burned through roads across America. You spat gas on the sidewalk with a devilish grin. It was the hottest thing I've ever seen. I loved how your necklace hung in waves, how your mantis green hair glowed in the sunlight. We gripped the wheel as old sailors. The door rattled with double bass and torque transmission drops. You wanted to set the world on fire with Technicolor bubblegum and candy stickers. I wanted to set the world on fire with rusted red cans of petrol and strike anywhere matches. Across the Midwest, grasses lurched and weeped in our wake. Funeral processions, swallowed in hungry clouds. We talked about our deaths. You said you wanted a pink casket with a glitter unicorn. I wanted a Viking burial burned at sea. Your bubbles popped in pink, expansive spheres as the dashboard cracked in the frosted morning, colorful loose wires revealing little fruit ropes zip-tied together. You were the fruit rope, I was the expanding dash. The motor thrummed like insufflated chains, our headlights pierced the darkness. One of us will set this world on fire, or one another in the process.
It's awesome.
That was your trip out?
That was, I've traveled a lot. I've lived in 12 states,
Wow.
and I've been to like all of them.
Wow.
I've spent a lot of time traveling. I've traveled with the Renaissance Festival, and I did a bunch of other random things. I get bored. This next poem is called, I want to read this one. This one is called Omen. I was feeling particularly ethereal on this day. By the lantern with warm and glow, cast silhouette on crooked timber. She, the white deer on the cliffside, antlers of twisted vine, reaching, stance of regal glory, her head tilts skyward, eyes of secret wisdom, lips of black smoke shoelace, breath as frost of rising tower, revealing the moonlight cast. The stars that burst over millennia hold no such primal beauty as hers. In healed scars of horizontal carve, picturesque in her divinity, her eyes which are fountains to the angels, holiness in the mind of the witness. Yet one thing consumes her, survival. Unaware she is of her primal beauty. Uncaring she is to her regal beauty, her scars of horizontal carve. They ache still in the freeze of winter, in remembered battle, in failure. The witness who sees the god on the cliffside, he sees only her divinity, her scars, her sacrifice, her breath of heavenly tower. In the township, the man grows old. This idol he tells of her throughout his long years, of her glory, her beauty, her antlers of twisting vine. tales of angelic fountain, of secret wisdom, reimaginings and warped expansions, of divine scars under lanterns' glow. Near the cliffside, on the narrow trails, she grazes on bushes, unaware she was of the man. She thinks only of the fly that has landed on her nose. Yeah. I think I'm going to read 2 more. Actually, you guys mind if I read 3 shorter ones?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
This one is called Subtlety in the Modern Era. All these subtle cues, intimate glass projections, in shades of country elm. I, a leper of communication. You, a Shakespearean personification. It's so easy now to meet strangers, to leave them at empty tables with candles that burn to little metal discs in your absence. I mean, I have a really dark one, if you guys want to hear that. I'm just going to read it. It's called And the Wind Called Mary. One sanctimonious life, 7 levels of purgatory, skin that stretches in glittered pastel translucency. I pull teeth in sleep like building blocks, gently floating beneath the gum line. Buoys anchored to a long dry oasis, threadbare body lying askance in the sun, cracking like mud. These years I have birthed sacrifice deep in the cavernous ribbed pit where a beating fist once slept. Arrhythmia pumps in thick blood bursts, muscle contraction, twitched in elongation, a dance of decay elegant in composition. My styrofoam spirit chips and splinters in the heat, ashen snow that drifts in feather-light sheets. My decalcified bones dangle between tendons of thin, desiccated string. Sloth pit rock pushers dig narrow trenches. Reticulated bone whips crack flesh. No mourners gather to witness. I sit and wade in waves of undulating viscera. Claws that grasp at fragmented bone shells that swarm like roaches to the shore. Sharpened calcium knives, blades of grass sway in the distance, unattainable beauty to starve the senses. All of the roads in my life have led me here. Selfish choices, manipulative tendencies, deep-seated regrets. The way was paved brick by brick, year by year, choice by choice, all little stones pushed in the circle just for me. I was reading Dante Alighieri before I wrote that, which you probably have caught on to that one. And I think I have one more that I think would be good. Okay. I'm going to try to read a very even darker one, and then something mildly happy, and then I'm going to be done. This is called The Old Well, and it might be like the worst thing I've ever written. Never again. Only the wind listens. Exasperated discomfort at full boil. Bubbles rise and leak from the creases, eyes spilling fountains of sadness. Time recesses the feelings of repetition, reclaiming the same mistakes time and time again. Cattle falls into the crumbling well where it rots and stagnates in murky pools. Winter comes and goes. Fleeting ice. Isolation fixates on past indiscretion. Cyclical thoughts spin like a top until it wobbles noisily to the floor. Enough. Pharmaceutical daydreams, hazy visions, days melt into weeks, months, years, until one day eyes open in concrete lucidity, thrashing at the walls, breaking apart the drywall. It's hard to say I miss you with this frail body of wicker and wire. The words fall into the well as an echo, the sizzling pressure that squeals from the tap. Mirthful, bereft, forever unapologetic. The streets shake with sorrow. Tomorrow, another haze fit, familiar blur. The pig will be exhumed and the well sealed. With it, memories will be stored in so many crafted compartments. It's all right to remember, but it's always unwise to circle. Even the vultures know when it's time to feed. That's called The Old Well, and I was in a really good mood when I wrote it.
Because we're neither of us are murderers.
I know.
We can come out of this today.
Such a shame. So this one is, I mean, it's about as happy as I get, which is not very. It's called Jawbreaker. And I'm going to leave you with this one because I just think it's kind of cute. Jawbreaker. You left me with arms of hollow cavities, gingerbread houses, and various states of decay. You kissed me on the candy cane veranda. In the darkness of scented caramel, you tied sugar weights to my heart. You bound me in a knotted bubble tape prison, breath of candy cigarettes and Twizzler noose. You buried me on the hillside facing cinnamon lights, commercial warehouses that roll jawbreakers long into the night. You carried on easily without me. Just another lollipop wrapper falling in your wake. Thank you guys.
Nice.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate you guys having me here and stuff. This is a beautiful library. It's huge.
That's a good
I
one.
went outside and I was like, whoa, that was a big one. Thank you guys for everything.
Thank you,
Buchanan.
Buchanan. Great. Okay. So,
The president's name.
welcome to the open mic part of the open mic poetry night. I'll start off, followed by James Weissman, then followed by Clayton Buchanan. I have a couple here that I recently wrote, and I'll just try them out. This is called Black Cap Chickadee. Yesterday I tried to say the chickadee. He was perched on the side of a flower pot on my porch, all puffed up, head nested in his yellow fur ball body. I held the fragile thing in my hands, placed him in a box with some paper towels on the bottom. Labored breathing. He cannot perch anymore. He lays his head down. His tail flutters. His tail wings flutter. One last time. The chickadee breathed his last. Call it. Time of death, 5:05 p.m. This one I called Air Walks. I walked across the walkway over the Hudson and my right foot blew up. It looked like gout, but I don't drink and eat healthy, so I knew I could rule that out. My sneakers are at least 7 years old and offer little support. I am sure I have over 1,000 miles on those kicks. I broke down and went to Famous Footwear, and I start looking for ankle boots. The Holy Spirit redirected me and showed me these beautiful white Skechers sneakers speckled with silver glitter. I try them on. I am walking on air. I buy them on sale, $65, regularly $95. They are worth every penny. My mother asked, how do they feel? I said, like I'm walking on air. She asked, what kind? I said, arch fit. A couple of days pass. Mom calls and says, I'm getting those Skechers Airwalks.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Okay, so this is called The Tempo of Divorce. The Tempo of Divorce. They wage war, demand you take a side, profess your loyalty to one or the other. But your feet are planted in peace. Your heart is bereft because their diamond-hard hearts are hell-bent on destroying each other and anyone else who stands in their way. Grown children caught in the crossfire, they need to pick a side to get out of the line of fire. Who gets the forward tempo? How about the tree in the front yard? The tree is beautifully wrapped in baby blue steel by my enraged father. Mom wanted the new car and the settlement. Dad settled it, nestled that baby right into a tree. True story.
With a tempo.
In tempo.
Yeah.
The tempo of divorce.
Yeah.
The tempo in divorce. James, would you like to come up?
I might as well start with one that's about children. Though I was thinking mostly of Uvalde shooting. Though at the time I was writing this, it was more about terrorism in general. It's called No Revenge, No Retribution. In any war we fight, we must weigh the death of our children, of our parents, of everyone we love. How does it matter if we also die? Children die in accidents anyway. Children die from the risks they take. Children die from the risks taken by others. Children die when they get in the way. Children die if it sends a message. Children die when we kill them. Do we hate our enemies more than we love our children? We can revenge ourselves for the death of beloved children with the death of unknown children, and sacrifice our yet living children to the next wave of revenge. The altar of sacrifice built on nationalism, religious convictions, histories and legends, desperation, hatred, and revenge. When we place our children on this altar, we should be looking for a ram. Has God sent us a ram? Where is the ram God offers in sacrifice? Who do we think God is asking when we offer him dead children? What could we think God is asking when we give him dead children? This one is called Contempt. I tend to be the kind of poet who writes, about things I get upset about. So I apologize for that. And I'm kind of depressive, so. Contempt. Democratic mistakes may not be survivable, but Republican errors are deadly. Climate change is real and caused by humans. Contempt for climate deniers is natural. It's the same way I feel towards racists, flat earthers, fundamentalists, and Holocaust deniers. Climate change is developing and theories change, but effects are measurable and easy to recognize. We have changed the chemical makeup of earth, soil, air, and water. This is our responsibility because we perceive it. Human survival is indispensable to human value. The worth of our present stays in the present. Our worth in the future is determined by that future. It is an act of treason against humanity to plan our extinction. Refusal to recognize obvious danger is a betrayal of oneself. We accept death as individuals as unavoidable. Our species changes, adapting to survive. Armageddon, apocalypse, Ragnarok are predictions of destruction and survival. Torture, murder, confinement, war, all evidence of human cruelty and malice. Our future is influenced, not determined by our choices. We can make our species' survival a priority. We can reject destructive economics and technologies. Pray the good times keep rolling and plan for likely disasters. The clash of Republicans and Democrats is such a disaster. The ignorant, rude, crude are proud of themselves. The coastal elites and educated professionals are proud of themselves. Pride has replaced humility as a cultural value. Our pride makes it hard to listen. My pride makes obvious my enemy's disrespect. Names and categories, I shout at the TV images, despicable, deplorable, reprehensible, fanatic, fascist, hateful. Their pride names me in equal contempt. Leftist radicals, libertards, socialists, elitists, communist stooges. Ronald Reagan's epithet, tree huggers, is well remembered, but I seldom now hug trees. When we hate the sinner along with their sin, we hate those who hate us for hating them. We disparage those who disparage us, an endless feedback loop blocking communication. As a Democrat, let me admit that the Republicans are right about my feelings. I don't respect their opinions. I did want Trump impeached immediately. I don't believe any election has been fixed, and Trump was never a legitimate president. Why can't we just admit it? We're right, and they're wrong, and that's the difference. Thanks.
Thank you.
This first piece is entitled Chorals of Nature. Outside noise I hear is a multitude of nature's orchestral instrumentation playing together, forming a creative abstraction of musical sounds. A true creation of nature's exotic orchestration of voice, pleasure, and dance. I love living this open existence of nature's outreach and sharing her many talents with all of us. We are truly a lucky entity having her, our Mother Nature, in caring for our world family. The sounds of her multitudinous creativity so come together in her ongoing life performance. One of my many true loves of her sounds are the variety of bird chirpings so beautifully mixing when coming together and playing as the choral talents they are and always will be. I have tried myself chirping with them, but I am way out of tune, lacking their talent, but I am always there to hear and absorb and thank Mother Nature for her creations. This is a piece, I don't know that I've read here before, but I might have. It's several years old. It's entitled The Myanmar Poets Forever. Dilapidated democracy deaths of poets in Myanmar since military criminals seizing of power has not yet taken control of their righteous words, but has killed poets. On poets' words speak truths that need being said and acted upon. The horrific price to pay for these words of truth to Myanmar's people is openly accepted by these poets who put the value of freedom for others far above their own valued lives. This military coup needs eradication by the devotion to freedom, so stated by the poetic words centralized from the township of Moinwa, having emerged as center of fierce resistance. The National Poets Union has given Moinwa poets countless awards in regard to artistry of words created in language read and spoken. More than 4 poets have been killed here, some shot in head, some drenched in gasoline set on fire, more than 30 imprisoned, all of these fighting for freedom of life, so stated by miraculous usage of wondered words. On this goes. Realization Actions for Freedom here is an inspired inspiration. Let us join speaking of poetic words to open freedom's doors in Myanmar country, between the logistic borders of India and China, some years back having been known as Burma. These poetic souls have given their honored lives in standing tall, creatively stating the honesty of freedom, not only for their families and friends, but for all the people of Myanmar. The military coup continues killing and arresting protesters, including children, across a country willing to stand up for its strong beliefs of freedom over military domination. We will win. Myanmar Poets' dedication to free speech has pulled together a countrywide expanding protest. It is receiving international recognition. The in-power military coup here duplicates the Nazi Third Reich under Adolf Hitler, a true psychopathic killer of his period. The poetic word of truth across our world will bring them down. The Myanmar poets, having given their devoted lives to words of freedom for their country, will not be forgotten and always will be remembered for strengths. The Myanmar poets are still fighting with words for freedom. I have added mine. Thank you.